Welcome to Engaged Company Culture, a podcast directed at you, helping you to stop the employee exodus in your organization. This podcast has 3 different types of episodes. First, you have tips, tricks, observations, stories, research from me, Dr. Catherine Weiberg of Profitable Alignment. Second, interviews with other consultants, other coaches who are here to serve you so you can learn other tips and tricks to engaging your employees, to stop the employee exodus, to consciously create and continue a company culture where people want to be and where they encourage other people to come to work and to become your customers. Third, I interview other business leaders who have engaged company cultures and want to share their stories. You might learn from them how they have applied principles of company culture to increase their employee retention, increase their profits, increase their productivity, and increase everyone's job satisfaction. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Welcome to today's episode of Engaged Company Culture. Today, my guest is Ashley Fernandez, your career hype woman. She's the owner and founder of Ashley Marie Coaching, LLC, a career development and personal growth company, and the hype woman everyone wants in their corner. I must admit, even leading into this, she was encouraging my hype, which those of you who have ever met me in person, I have some anyway, but it was pretty fantastic. She is a professional certified career coach and trauma-informed mindset practitioner who specializes in helping high-achieving women uncover what is holding them back from designing a career and life they don't want to run away from. Sounds perfect for great resignation topics and for engaging company culture, doesn't it? With Ashley's background as a Fortune 500 recruiter, DEI practitioner, and having successfully transitioned across 6 industries, she is armed with the tools and strategies that help others gain clarity, increase confidence, and own their own career development. Ashley has a career in psychology, over 10 years of experience in the HR space, and has been certified by an ICF accredited coaching program. By day, she works for a Big 4 accounting firm, and by night, she is helping her clients get to the next level of success. Ashley lives in New Jersey with her husband and 2 sons, loves coffee and family adventures. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and I am thrilled to be here with you today and your listeners.
Thank you. One of the things that you talked about is that every person has a role to play in creating and sustaining their company culture. With the work that you do, how do you help people see their role in creating company culture?
Oh, that's such a great question. It's really easy to blame everyone else, right? And so when you're an individual contributor in an organization and something just it's not right, you just kind of feel disengaged, you're just like going about the day-to-day, like that's on you. That's your responsibility to figure out what that is, and then how do you shift it? And then when you think about how that translates into an organization's culture, everyone has the opportunity to start to create a culture shift. You don't have to wait for your CEO or culture officer or HR to come up with a project to say, we're going to change our culture because we don't feel like it's, representative of who we are anymore. Like, you can start that change as an individual.
I love that. In fact, I'm a proponent of that. I remember times that I was an employee and I would be in cultures where I thought, I can help this because I am a naturally cheerful person. I also believe in blunt compliments and kind correction. And I would work very carefully where I thought people needed a little oomph to try to help the culture. I'm thinking of one in particular where there was a woman who was fantastic at what she did, but she would so frequently say, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or they just pay me this, that, and the other. And I could feel it affecting everybody. So a couple of times I would go over to her desk and say, so let me tell you what I see you do. And it made a difference. It wasn't always long-term for her, but it made a difference, and it made a difference in the people around us. And I was just one person.
Yes, exactly. It's one person, one small shift, right? That you notice and you were able to action right away. And can you imagine the ripple effect it had on your team members, your colleagues, and just the environment overall?
And in fact, I did watch it make changes. That's one of the reasons that I got into what I do, because I realized one person can make a difference.
Yeah.
And every one person that you touch can make a difference. That's why engaging your company culture is such a big deal, because you can bring every one person. If you think about how much money is lost on replacing people who quit or who just plain leave, even with noisy quitting, there's so much that goes into that. But just for one person, it's going to take 50% of that person's salary and benefits just to replace.
Yes.
So keep that one person and then help that person keep one other person. And then it grows.
Exactly.
So what is your advice that you would give to current leaders, especially if they want to either be or reach that one person?
So we could probably have an entire episode about that. But I would say kind of the core piece is to be vulnerable. Lean into the hard conversations that you are scared to have or you don't want to have because you are worried about saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. And show up as yourself. Because if you show up as your authentic self, you are going to encourage those on your team and those around you or your leadership peers to be confident to show up as themselves too. And so what do I mean by that? Maybe you have 3 kids, one's in college, one's in middle school, and you have a little one. Okay. And they all have different things going on. And so maybe you need to take off in the summer to take your older one to look at a new college because they want to transfer. Or maybe your middle one has band practice and you have to take them every Tuesday at 3 p.m. And so you don't take any meetings after 2. Right? Like lead by example and whatever that looks like for you, really authentically.
I love that. It sounded very Brene Brown to me, because you talked about being vulnerable and being authentic, really showing up.
That is a huge compliment. So thank you for that.
Well, it was meant to be, and yet it was sincere. As I said, I believe in blunt compliments. So it comes into my mind and out my mouth. I would like to hear how you got from where you started to where you are, because you have a bit of a background that's a little bit diverse in and of itself.
I do. I started out by getting a degree in psychology, as you mentioned, right? Thinking I was going to save the world in nonprofit work, which kudos to everyone doing nonprofit work because we need you doing the great work you're doing. But I quickly learned that for me, it was not sustainable to live in New York and work in a nonprofit as a young adult and pay any bills or any of those things. Anyway, so I figured out, okay, how can I do some of that work and then do something else, right, to sustain my life? So I started waitressing and bartending and, doing the average things you do as an early young adult. And that transpired into me training new people, which was interesting, right? Like now I can look back and see the thread. But so I would train new hires. I would go to help open new restaurants and new businesses in creating their entire hospitality framework, everything from hiring, so from talent acquisition stuff to business operations, all of the pieces that you need that at the time I just thought I was kind of like, just doing a job, right? But in doing that, I started to understand the importance of developing your network. Even those opportunities were because of someone I had met, right? And so then I transitioned into IT from a healthcare company because of someone I met. And so I learned project management skills, communication, facilitation, all of these things that I had no idea that's what I was even learning, because I just thought I was doing this job, right? And again, that transition that allowed me to transition into something else. So I was at a point in my life where I was doing this job. I was not getting paid for the amount of work I was doing, let me be honest. And it was super draining. And then my mom got sick and became terminally ill with cancer. And for me, it was a very quick aha moment when I kind of got like pushback from my boss. I wasn't getting any kind of empathy that you would expect now looking back, right? And so I had to make a really hard decision to leave. And so I thought to myself, okay, now what do I do? Again, I leveraged my network. I started in recruiting because I'm a good talker. I'm good at chatting with people and I'm good at helping people figure out problems, right? And so then I started working as a Fortune 500 recruiter, where I really understood the landscape of talent, HR, from a candidate side and an employee side and the client side. And that afforded me an opportunity to continue to navigate my way to work in from a client-facing perspective, like a different angle, and then ultimately land where I am at KPMG during the day, where I help to create talent strategies, DEI strategies, and figure out how do we really engage our people in the core things that we're trying to drive.
There were a couple of things in there that just really got the wheels turning for me that I just loved. One of the things that you said is, I thought I was just doing this job, and you didn't recognize initially all that you were learning and all that you were accomplishing. I think a lot of people don't realize everything that they bring to a company, and that maybe the leaders don't recognize everything that their people bring to a company because they were just doing their job. But recognizing their strengths, recognizing how they can engage what they do and what they love. And then the other thing you said, now you see the thread. So looking back from just doing a job to seeing the thread of commonality. What is it that I loved about all these different jobs, about these different career paths that I thought I was taking, from being a bartender to being a recruiter to being a trainer, and all of these things were building people and using your psychology degree.
Yes, exactly.
And then you talk about engaging everybody. It just tickled all my nerve centers that make me excited. I think it's fantastic.
That's the key though, right? And then I realized, like, oh my gosh, I have all of these skills and experiences. I need to share them because other people need them, which is what started me coaching and consulting, because it took me a while to realize, like, not everyone even knows how to do this. Right? No one has all of these skills or experiences, and I do. So let me bring that to the table for someone else to be able to create the culture shift that they want, with really engaged employees, really engaged leaders, and for people to feel super fulfilled in their life.
Ooh, good for you. How do you help them to engage their employees and embrace diversity?
So I think employee engagement is a word that gets thrown out around like a lot, right? It's like, oh yeah, we just need more employee engagement. Like, what does that even mean? Does that mean you need more people to show up and do something? Does that mean you need more people to be role models? Like, what does that mean? So one, define what it is for your organization. But essentially, the key piece there for me, I think, is listening to your people. Because you can't engage them with anything, any kind of change management activity, anything culture related or DEI related, if you're not listening really carefully to what they are asking for, what they need, and what they want, not what you think they need.
I completely agree. That's one of the things that I talk about also. You have to listen. It's not just bringing people to the table, it's actually having a conversation. One of the things that I encourage people to do is observe your meetings. Again, that's going to be listening. You're looking to see who speaks, who doesn't speak, what's their body language, what happens when a leader walks in, What happens when you walk in? How are decisions handled? How do things happen after the meeting? It could go on and on and on,
Yes.
but it's listening and full body active listening. I completely agree. I also love that you said not what you think they want, but actually listening to what they want.
Yes. And that is such a key. I have to share because I just saw it yesterday. It made me laugh and I think you'll appreciate it. It was a meme, of course, but it said, I don't want another employee pizza party, right? I want you to pay me what I'm worth.
Oh, I love it.
And that like sums it up super clear and super simple because we have all been a part of either throwing the pizza party or going to the pizza party. And well, don't get me wrong, I love pizza, right? I'm from New York. Pizza is a staple, but that's not going to get me to feel engaged about where I'm working and what I'm doing.
Right. Right. Recognizing why people applied to work where they are right now. Understanding, maybe you can recapture that passion because you still love nonprofits, even though it's not sustainable for you, you still have a heart for nonprofits. So what engages you there, for example, and then going to the people with whom you work. Well, why did you want to be here in the first place? Do you still like it? Why or why not?
Yes,
And
1000%.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's as simple as like conducting a stay interview with like a sample of your population.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally that simple, or creating an employee survey. That doesn't have to be, if you're a smaller company, you don't have to have a great big technology, right? You can create it on Microsoft Forms. You can really create it on anything.
Yes.
Like hear what your people are asking for.
Yes. I think it's brilliant. I completely agree. So we've talked a lot about listening and recognizing and engaging. How do you help people recognize success?
That's a juicy question. You have to understand and really, really define what success means for you as an individual, and then also for your organization or team, etc. Because everyone's definition of success is different. And so if you are thinking about it from a personal standpoint, you need to define it. If you're thinking about it from a team or project standpoint, you need to know what your success indicators are, right? If you're trying to drive a culture shift in a culture project, how are you going to measure what the success is if you don't decide what your driver and your KPIs are around it? You can't, right? And it could be more employee engagement based on survey data. It could be attrition data, right? It could be all of these different factors. Those are just two examples, but really understanding how you're defining it for each individual, like from an individual standpoint, a team standpoint, a business standpoint, and overall as your company.
I love it. And how would you help them to get people to contribute their ideas of success, especially if they're trying to do a culture shift? How would you encourage them to show that they're making a shift and to get people excited about it?
So I think it's a few things, right? It's one, understanding what the pillars are that you need to develop to create a culture shift and what a change approach would look like. But it's also heavily reliant on your communications plan and strategy and your engagement, quote unquote, strategy. And what does that mean, right? Giving people a place to share their opinion. So maybe it's running a campaign, right? And giving winners, you know, a handful of winners for the people who share this thing on social media. Maybe it's creating a champion network, right? There's a variety of different things you can do to, like, levers to pull to engage people in creating that shift.
What is a champion network?
So a champion network, for example, so say you have an organization that has six core business lines, right? Whatever they may be. Maybe it's finance, marketing, advisory services, tax services, HR services, et cetera, right? You get my drift. So in each of those businesses, you want to identify, based on your population, a handful of people who can be your champions for change. And so they are your champions to help drive the culture shift or project, initiative, whatever it may be, that you are trying to drive. So they are highly engaged with you and their people. They have a pulse on what's happening on the ground, but they also have a pulse on what you're trying to drive at the center, and they help create this energy in between.
I love that. One of the reasons that I love it is that your champions don't have to be the titled leaders. They just need to be influencers within the organization, people that others would look to. So
Yes.
for example, the woman that I mentioned earlier who would frequently say she didn't know what she was doing was actually a resource for a lot of people. People would go to her and say, what can I do in this situation? Well, have you considered this or this or this or this? And she had all this wealth of knowledge. So if she had been brought on board and truly found value in a culture shift and saw that it was happening, people would look to her because of her experience.
Yeah.
But she wasn't a titled leader. She still was an influencer.
But that's the key, right? It's not always the people at the top. So yes, you need a leader. Your leader, if you are the leader of your organization or on a leadership team, you have a responsibility to drive it.
Yes.
But you don't have to be the end all be all to do everything to drive it all the way down so it gets integrated.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
really
agree.
important, I think, a distinction there.
I agree. One of my favorite things is when a leader recognizes, oh, I can't do everything, but I know people who can do the things I don't do well. And this gives me opportunity to ask for their help and gives them opportunity to shine in something that they do well.
Yeah. Yeah. And another point I wanted to connect back to what you had just previously said is understanding the buy-in, like the what's in it for me. So if you were tapping the individual you just mentioned, right, to be a champion. Yes, okay, she knows a lot and she's doing a lot and she's already probably giving this knowledge to a lot of people, but what's in it for her? And maybe it's recognition, maybe it's more visibility, maybe it's a title, it could be a variety of different things, right? But understanding when you are trying to create a culture shift, the what's in it for me for every job level and the different personas that you have working for you is critical to sustaining it.
Oh, it's fantastic. I agree. I completely agree. Especially if people want to be able to move up or move laterally, even if they want to stay right where they are, what is in it for them? What is the benefit? Because if they receive benefit, if they feel valued, they're going to naturally give value. It's, oh, what I do actually provides value, service, benefit. So I want to do more of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's creating that alignment that goes in all levels of the organization, in all facets of the organization.
Alignment. There it is. That's $1 million word.
Mm-hmm. With all of the conversation today about inclusion and diversity and equity, and really we've had these conversations for decades upon decades. Mm-hmm. And I believe we're improving, although we still need to continue. What advice would you give to diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals and teams?
Oh, so the first piece of advice is going to be selfish advice for them, is to understand how to manage their self-care and their burnout. Because the level of burnout that DEI practitioners and professionals are facing, chief diversity officers, their entire teams, is extremely, extremely high. And so set your boundaries and practice self-care, whatever that could look like for you, right? Because there is no one size fits all.
Right.
The second piece of advice is it's not only on you to create the change. It's not your sole responsibility on your shoulders to get everyone on board doing what you want them to quote unquote do. Okay, you need to understand who your key stakeholders are and how to engage them and where they are on a stakeholder engagement map. Because if you
Explain
think, so if you think about your org structure, right? Some people need to be informed, right, of what's going on. Some people need to be extremely engaged and accountable for what they're driving. Some people need to be responsible for what they're driving. Some people need to do the driving, right? And so understanding who your stakeholders are and where they are in terms of how you need to engage with them will really help you understand how you can move the needle. Because not everyone needs to be in the weeds with you in a planning call. Right? Some people might just need a quick communication that's like a one slide, that's a high level overview of progress to date. And that's enough.
True.
I think that's really, really key.
Thank you. I've attended and observed many meetings where not everybody who was there needed to be there. And it's a fantastic idea, I think, to recognize who needs to be fair and when, and what type of engagement does the individual need. Because you have the diversity that we can see. You have the diversity that we cannot see. You have the diversity in job description and in job responsibility. And if you want everybody to have a seat and a voice at the table, recognizing what do they need at the table is going to help to truly make that inclusion happen.
Yes, exactly. And maybe even it's an opportunity, right, for someone to bring someone along from a learning perspective, to give them that opportunity to sit at that table. So that's okay. But even understanding that is really, really impactful. And you will have an opportunity to engage that person probably in a way that they haven't been engaged yet, so they can get the visibility and the learning experience that they're actually there for.
And it comes right back to what you were talking about, recognizing the one at the very beginning.
Exactly.
That one person that you can bring along if you need to, or if you want to, or if that person wants to, creating the mentorship possibility, creating the culture, one person at a time, one team at a time, until it grows. And then it becomes how people identify when they look at the organization.
Yeah, exactly.
You bring all of that diversity into one great whole.
Exactly.
Thank you. We talked all over the place, which I think is a lot of fun. We've had some common thread of all the things that we've touched on. What do you most want people to remember or to be able to do after this?
So I think a few keys, right? One is everyone has a role to play, right? Everyone has a role to play in sustaining and creating an engaged culture. I think that's really, really important. Number two, your leadership. If you're a leader, you or your leadership team can make or break everything. Like those two key pieces, I think are it.
You can make or break anything. I love that. What is the best way for somebody to reach out to you? I'll have all of your links in the show notes, but what's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn. So send me a direct message on LinkedIn or send me an email directly to Ashley@ashleymariecoaching.com.
Excellent. And there is one other thing you had mentioned just before we got on the call, that you have something that you would like to offer to listeners and viewers that gives a bit of a high overview perspective. Tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yes. So I created a quick guide. It's called the 5 Stages to Approach Culture Change, and it will give you a foundation of the key pieces that you need to actually create and sustain a culture change. And so if you are at a point where you're like, we're just starting out, I don't even know where to begin and what to do, or you've been trying it for a few years and you're not really getting traction, go check where you may have missed one of these steps and really take some time to dive into it. Because if you follow these key steps and it's a high level approach, you will absolutely be able to sustain the change that you're looking to drive.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'll be sure to have the link for that in the show notes. Thank you, Ashley. You have been wonderful. I hope people have enjoyed this anywhere near as much as I have.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I could talk about this all day. So I'm glad we had a really dynamic conversation and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody who is listening or viewing, if you found this valuable, be sure to share the episode with somebody else who will find value. Let's keep our engaged company cultures going. Let's make the changes we need. Thank you. Thank you for listening to or viewing today's Engaged Company Culture episode. I hope you have enjoyed the episode. I hope you have learned something and have something that you can apply today to engage your company culture and encourage your employees to enjoy work, looking forward to Mondays instead of only looking forward to Fridays. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone else you know. Also, like and subscribe to Engaged Company Culture anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you and have a wonderful day.